Thank you very much for this opportunity. As you've heard, he was describing me there, and I was looking at myself and wondering, is it me he's talking about? And he said 2 decades. I thought, wow. So Eva said she's not as old as you see, but once you said 2 decades, I can't say I'm as young as I look. So, thank you. So, I was asked to talk about regulatory policies in Africa and the nuances faced by regulators and the importance of regulatory or industry commitment and the need for collaboration between regulators and industry. And that's going to be the focus of my talk today. As you know, regulatory policies are very important and they're a vital aspect of fostering economic growth, protecting consumer rights, as well as ensuring fair competition. And I think I'm coming at a point when a lot has been said by both Eva and John Paul. So I don't think I need to get into the importance of regulatory policies because all that they were saying or talking about here was just that. But I'll start by giving a brief overview of what I think is the regulatory landscape in Africa. And as you all know, in this continent of close to 1.3 billion individuals, with 55 African countries, as John Paul was talking about, each of them having its own regulatory framework and approaches to regulations. There's a lot of diversity, and each nation has its own set of laws and shaped by historical and political as well as economic factors. So when we talk about regulatory policies, this is the perspective that I would like us to face it from. There's no one size fits it all, and as we try to carve out, even as AMA is coming into play, as we try to carve this out, we'll need to recognize our diversities and make it count for us. And I believe there's strength in diversity. As AMA will be trying to carve out and have a framework within which all the 55 regulators will be operating on within the individual economic blocks that John Paul defined. I think it will be key for us to recognize the diversities that we all face. And as I say that, it's also important to realize that we cannot overlook the nuances that regulatory policies will have to overcome and face within that context. And regulators in Africa, therefore, will be faced with unique challenges and complexities due to all these factors that I've talked about. And these factors are going to significantly impact on the formulation and implementation of regulatory policies. Therefore, it will be crucial to consider the specific needs and circumstances that each country will be coming with, and to ensure that effective regulations are context specific. In terms of industry commitments, I think Eva's touched a lot on this, so I will not overstate what she has mentioned, but just to say that industry commitment is very crucial in shaping regulatory policies. The industry possesses valuable expertise and insights which can greatly contribute to the formulation of practical and relevant regulations. When industries are actively engaged in the regulatory process, it leads to improved policy outcomes and better compliance. Because when we make these policies, they're not just for regulators, but for industries to be able to comply. And they can only comply with policies that reflect the needs that they have and are relevant to their circumstances. And also will enhance investment climate. And John Paul talked about the Africa free trade area. So regulations have been shown to play an important role in trade as well. So as we form these policies, they're not just to ensure that products are safe, effective, and of high quality, but they also facilitate trade amongst countries, and also policies that help to remove barriers, both tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade and commerce between countries. So it is important to ensure that there is effective collaboration between regulators and industry stakeholders to foster an enabling regulatory environment. By working together, the regulators and industry representatives can address challenges, find common grounds, and identify solutions that strike a balance between business interest and the public good. And I think Eva talked about this. From a business perspective, we might have profit-driven minds or mindsets, but in doing this, we also have to ensure that there's a greater public good, that the health products and technologies that we are producing and putting out there are safe, effective, and efficacious, and also of high quality. I thought that it would be easier to talk through this when I use a case study. And my case study, what I thought of fits in well with what has just been shared in the session that I just ended, mainly talking or looking at regulatory reliance and mutual recognition mechanisms for health products and technologies in Africa. And I think Eva defined what reliance is and mutual recognition, but the mechanisms that play a very critical role in facilitating access to safe and effective health products and technologies. And these case studies that I'm going to present here explore the positive impact of industry commitment on the establishment and implementation of regulatory reliance and mutual mechanisms within the African health sector. I started by saying that Africa faces unique challenges in ensuring that access to quality health products and technologies are met, and these products are available to the people who need them most. And therefore, regulatory reliance and mutual recognition mechanisms provide us with opportunities or frameworks for leveraging regulatory assessments that have been conducted by trusted regulatory authorities to streamline the approval processes and also to promote access to these essential healthcare solutions. From an industry perspective, in terms of commitment, we know that industry players in the health products and technologies sector have recognized the significance of regulatory reliance and mutual recognition mechanisms for overcoming regulatory barriers and improving the access to healthcare. And they actively engage in with the regulatory authorities, collaborating with international partners for the multinational organizations, and also they help support and invest in research and development for the implementation of these mechanisms. And here, I think you've talked about high engagement with associations such as CAPI. I also am a member of CAPI, and I work very closely with both Eve and John, as well as, within the leadership team of that. Specifically, I have a bias towards medical devices and in vitro diagnostics. That is the bulk of the work that I do. I know the industry is represented from both a pharma and a diagnostics perspective. So a lot of my biases in this work is from the other half, which is the medical devices and in vitro diagnostics perspective. And a lot of the stakeholders that we engage include, in this space, would be the health manufacturers and distributors of these products and technologies. John Paul talked about the Africa Union and the regional economic blocks. I don't want to dwell into the details of that. And then we also work very closely with the, from an industry perspective, with the national regulatory authorities And then we collaborate again with international regulatory bodies, including the WHO, Africa Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Initiative, which is one of the groups that John Paul talked about from the AU NEPAD perspective. We also collaborate with others, regional bodies such as MECOMED, ADVAMED from a global perspective, as well as for medical devices and diagnostics, the International Medical Devices Regulatory Forum, that is the IMDRF. In terms of the impact on regulatory policies of these collaborations, we know that the commitment from an industry has a positive impact on the regulatory policies regarding reliance and mutual recognition mechanisms in the African sector. And I will give a few examples in terms of policy advocacy and stakeholder engagement. When we come together in these forums to discuss or advance policies that make it possible for health products and technologies to be accessible to people, we do a lot of advocacy work, and we engage stakeholders in different aspects. It helps us to one, network, but also to push through the agenda from an industry perspective. In terms of the other thing we'll talk about is the regulator capacity building. We know that, as I said earlier on, the industry has a lot of expertise and experiences based on the products that they're developing. So they have the product knowledge that they bring on the table, and regulators might not have this, and they may need to build capacity so that they effectively regulate these products that are being brought to them by manufacturers or people who are applying for marketing to be able to market their products in the countries. And then Eva talked about data and evidence sharing. I will not talk much about that. I think that impact that we see from an industry perspective when we collaborate regards regional harmonization and collaborations. So I talked about MECOMED in terms of the work we do from a regional perspective. There's the regional economic blocks. When we bring, we're able to bring stakeholders together from the industry to engage with these regulators and also engage amongst themselves. Then we are building or harmonizing or pushing through our harmonization agenda and collaborating effectively. Then we're able to foster or get commitments that will enhance the access of products and technologies in our places. And then also the other impact regards risk-based approaches, where industry commitments encourages the adoption of risk-based approaches in regulatory decision making. The industry we are in is one that is highly regulated, and the people or the manufacturers or the industry players also exercise a lot of self-regulation by themselves. And therefore, whatever approaches we use to ensure health products and technologies should be those that do not pose unnecessary barriers to people accessing these products and technologies when they need them most. And we saw this even from the recent corona pandemic, where we had products rapidly coming into the market. Vaccines testing capacity was enhanced because of the regulatory approaches that were applied. We were able to rely on stringent regulations or stringent reviews that were performed by others in different contexts and apply similar mechanisms in our own context and get our products or those vaccines very quickly within our countries. So all these have a net impact on expediting access to health or the essential healthcare products and technologies. They also increase efficiencies and reduce regulatory burden as a whole, and they enhance regulator capacity and collaboration, promote regional integration, and at the end of it, they ensure that we have improved patient safety and quality assurance. So they conclude, I hope this case study demonstrates the positive impact of industry commitment on the establishment and implementation of regulatory reliance, mutual recognition mechanisms in Africa within the health sector. And through policy advocacy, capacity building, data sharing, and these collaborative efforts, industry players have influenced regulatory policies as a whole to promote timely access to safe and effective health products and technologies. Thank you.